normally against champions, right? You sit there and like there are cooldown windows, or like there are certain opportunities where like certain levels you can look to trade.
Windows of power and opportunity cost.
Whereas against Tahm Kench, as long as he has Q, you're dead.
And it's on like a 4-second cooldown, so there's a lot of you're dead.
But it's funny because the thing about Tahm Kench is in laning phase, he's really oppressive. But then out of lane, he gets kited so easily that if you don't have things like Righteous Glory, like all these tools to just help close the gap, then he just gets kited for days. Which is why we put so much emphasis on these snowballs, because if they land, then it's over. But if they don't land, then you're just gonna get poked for days. Like there's a stun on the Xerath. You also have the slow field from the Varus. We're going to be finally jumping into game. Let's see if this double Hail of Blades support
Oh, baby. On my side computer here, I do also have the all chat visible, which Sven kicked things off by saying, good luck, have fun, XD. So you know it's going to be that kind of a game,
that kind of game
between these two duos here. Remember, this isn't actually for any sort of points or standings in the overall tournament. Instead, it is to decide who gets side selection in the upcoming match between the complete rosters of these squads. Patrick and Nukeduck hanging out in that brush there, just waiting for the chance, Vedius, to throw first snowball.
Yeah, but TSM, they're very aware of it. They recognize that the brushes, places of extreme danger. You never want to fix check those things.
That's a bad place to be.
So they're just going to avoid it for now. They've decided to go for what looks like Doran starts across the board, Ring for the Broken Blade, and the Blade for Sven. Meanwhile, double shield. And look at the positioning of Origin as well. They just want to try and zone them away from the farm as much as possible. And I mean, like, you would imagine that at level 1 with Hail of Blades, they're still insanely strong.
Yes. All right, they're going to farm up that one minion here. They'll at least be pushed away from the furthest most brush as Broken Blade wants to move forward.
They're going!
Double snowball into the Broken Blade. Stun him up, but not enough damage to take him down. It's going to be about half the HP bars of one member of both sides. Patrick going to take some extra auto attacks on his way out. But that's what they're looking out for, those snowballs. Now, there's at least a brief window. Snowball has about a 50-second cooldown. For Sven and Broken Blade did not worry so much, but once that summoner spell is back up for Origin, you best believe they're going to be flexing in that bush again.
But you can also see what happens if you don't have that level 2 and can't go for the all-in, where Sven was actually able to get a lot of harass on the retreat from the side of Origin, and they have to fully commit to these plays. But now they've got that level 2. Patrick, he has the Consume, and Nukeduck, I would imagine that he's going to skill the W next, so that even if he misses his snowball, he can jump on top of the Tahm Kench, and he can stay nice and close.
So now it just becomes up to Tahm Kench. Please hit your snowball. I can throw mine into the wilderness and just jump to you. Also important to note, Broken Blade now has the stun available on the Xerath, which is a very powerful disengage tool against melee champions. Just means that Nukeduck and Patrick will have to be that much more coordinated. There is no Ignite on Nukeduck or Patrick. There was no complete all-in with Snowball, Ignite, or anything of that sort, so you won't have that extra kill potential should these guys land those snowballs, but they're still controlling the lane for now. 16 to 18 CS though, TSM doing just fine. They even have more to pick up, so they will be at a lead in farm, but Origin's win condition was never farm when they drafted these champs.
Never going to be about the farm, but Patrick
Patrick! First blooded, they bench the Kent with a nice stun into an arrow.
Beautiful punish there from TSM. You know, they got all their levels now. They have all the poke at their disposal, and Patrick, he kept getting chipped away at. TSM secured themselves first blood, so this is a great position for them to be in right now, I believe. On this game mode, you can actually go back and base as well. So I would assume that TSM are going to use this opportunity to reset, buy a couple items, and given that they've now pushed the wave all the way out again, Origin's wave should slowly start pushing towards TSM, depending on where the cannon minion spawns, because they kind of stagnate.
Yeah, they're back and forth, and I also think that Nukeduck was trying to hold the wave in front of the turret, but he accidentally stepped into the brush for a split second, and the minions went to the turret anyway, so a little bit unlucky on the positioning there against those caster minions, but with TSM having gone back to base, now you've got more Dorans in the inventory. When the game's going to be fast, why not load up on the most cost-effective thing you can find? Some boots on Sven as well to catch up to these guys and outmaneuver those snowballs.
All right, so this is a good position for the wave to be in for Origin, largely because now Broken Blade and Sven are so far away from the tower, which means that this duo can just run them down, and they're going to look for it now.
Nukeduck going in, looking to use the flash, get these stuns, get some kills. Here comes the damage. Broken Blade will be taken down, but one more auto attack seals the deal. TSM take the 2v2.
I like the hard commit from the duo of Origin. However, they'd already lost that 1 kill earlier, so Sven's focus was on shutting down the Braum. Good decision-making there coming out from the duo, and TSM will be able to come out on top, and they get choice of side coming into this matchup.
All right, I believe we have a replay coming up of the kills here. This was your first one. Easy pickup.
Yep, you can see that he was just taking way too much harass, trying to push the wave in. And here we actually see the all-in commit. So Nuketook jumps to the minion wave, he blocks a lot of the damage with his E, and then they commit onto the Xerath first. Now you can see in this situation, they could probably actually get the two versus one, but Sven, quick thinking, was like, if I can just get this kill onto Braum, we can actually just win here and now.
Yeah, game's over.
And they're able to secure themselves the win. So definitely a big pickup. Really good stuff there from TSM, and we're just now waiting to find out which side TSM has selected for this matchup.
So difficult to play into those super poke-heavy champions with the all-in sometimes, because as you said, as soon as you fall behind, as soon as TSM has that point of control, it's all or nothing, right? You can't just sit there and allow Varus and Xerath to have their game. So I respect Origin for going in for it, not sitting under the turret and waiting till 88 CS or something to go for the all-in. Just get it over with, get in there and go down swinging.
Yep. So as you can see, Origin doing that before game chant. They like to say, we can do it.
I like
Amps
that.
them up, gets
It's a
them
positive
ready.
attitude, man. Half the battle is mental.
Yeah, they're actually all about that over in the Origin squad. Their facility over in Denmark very much focuses on mental health, well-being, being physically fit. They strive to be the pinnacle of esports organizations.
Motivation, work, improvement, team. Wasn't that the...
They've moved past that, Cloud. They're trying to forget that phase of Origin.
Hey, those are all good words.
But they're going to be going up against TSM today. And TSM, in my opinion, have definitely had a bit more of a disappointing split. I mean, the argument could be made for Origin as well, considering how they finished last split. But I feel like for both teams coming into summer, expectations from fans were actually very high.
Yeah.
Largely because for TSM, they actually ended a very close final. The way in which they were playing, in my opinion, was very much the MSI meta, where they were utilizing flex picks between both Bjergsen and Broken Blade. They were very aggressive and fast-paced in how they played the early game. And I felt like that this type of meta would suit them a lot, but coming into summer, it does feel like that they've struggled a lot. And like their very first game against Team Liquid, they even drafted like a heavy scaling comp with Azia and Ezreal, and they just got rolled over.
It felt like the criticisms that have been levied against TSM in seasons past time and time again, where it's, well, TSM just waits to scale. Where's the actual proactive play early on in the game? And Spring Split, at least the second half of it, to me felt like a breath of fresh air into TSM. Bringing in Zix as coach, revamping some of these old strategies, trying new things. And it's exactly as you're describing. Going up against Team Liquid, it looked like a different squad. And in summer, while they're not doing badly, they have a winning record.
They do, yeah.
The thing is, when you have those 3 letters in front of your name, there are expectations set for you as an organization, as the winningest organization in North American history. And just having a winning record isn't enough for TSM and their players and their fans. And you know they got to be wanting to get back to the top.
Yeah, and I watched their most recent game against the Golden Guardians. That was quite a game. Definitely an interesting one to watch. And I'm hoping that coming into this tournament, they've shaped things up. I know there's been a lot of debate, largely from fans between Acadian and Grig. Coming into this game, they've decided to use Acadian, and I'm looking forward to seeing how he stacks up to the likes of Cold, because in Europe, he's considered a very methodical jungler, while when he gets his handles on Rek'Sai, he's very much about trying to make a lot of early game plays. A lot of the time, he spends tracking and playing around lanes that have pressure, and he's very much about trying to control the enemy jungler and make sure that their early game impact is as limited as possible. So very much an Xmithy style, one could argue. However, recently Xmithy's been a little bit more on the aggressive side. But I'm excited to see that matchup, see how things play out.
And I also think it's interesting to talk about the difference between how these two teams finished in spring compared to one another, even though they were both second. Because we heard the players discuss it a little bit before we started the 2v2. The North American finals were very close. It was a best of 5 that went to the full 5 games. The last game could have gone either way. There were a couple critical errors from TSM that pushed it in the way of Team Liquid. neck and neck.
Yep.
Whereas in the European final, G2, they 3-0 Origin, not once, but twice because of the format change. So it was very clear which one of these two teams was superior. And so that debate and that question always comes up online. Well, which is better? Is it better to have your top team only be slightly better than your second best team, or to have your top team just cut everybody down?
Yep, and one of the fun discussions I always love reading was, is Origin actually that good? If they got that cleanly dismantled by G2, can they really be that strong? And then the world came to learn how strong G2 actually was.
Yeah.
And Origin is still trying to prove themselves. This split so far has not been the best. They're off to a slow start, but this trip to LA is definitely looking to reinvigorate some of the players, and I know that Origin and Kyoto and Mythi specifically have come to this event to destroy TSM and Sven.
Revenge.
Sven is who they want to take down. So I'm expecting a lot of prep coming into this game, and I can't wait to see what both these teams bring.
For those of y'all who might have missed the stat on the bottom of the screen at the beginning of this game, Sven and Mythi had played 350 professional games of League of Legends together, and only recently had been broken up to join new partners in their respective bottom lanes. We'll see how they face off now. TSM on the blue side after winning the 2v2. Irelia, Lux, Draven, Sivir, Sona, Karma, all banned away. The Yuumi did make it past the ban phase this time, but Origin knows TSM likes to play some of those Sona comps. They don't want them playing that this time around, but that Yuumi is locked in.
Origin going to leave that one up. I'm curious as to what they have prepared for it. Things like the Rakan is still available. Strong engaged support. But Origin immediately going to lock in the Sejuani Yasuo now. This is a very prevalent duo, 2v2 mid especially. One of the things that we've been seeing a lot around the world is the Gragas Yasuo combo. But one of the advantages of putting Sejuani and Yasuo together is Yasuo can help proc the passive from Sejuani, which means it's very easy to then proc her E as well. So it's a very potent duo. There's a small knockup as well on Sejuani. So they naturally synergize together, and it immediately gives you a very potent 2v2 mid jungle.
Right. Anything that's just a slight displacement allows Yasuo to trigger the last breath, make sure he can get onto those back lines, and man, did TSM pick a bottom lane that will be hard to kill later on in the game. Ezreal kites hard enough already, but with Yuumi attached to him, you have got to fully commit to bring this dude down. One more pick for TSM before the second half of the bans come through, and it's Trundle.
Oh, and Origin with the immediate answer of the Pike as well. I was not expecting this from Origin. Usually when we think of Pikes in Europe, we think of Hylissang, we think of every G2 player.
I was going to say, you have a whole team of them.
But it's not usually something that Origin go for. However, Origin do often talk about how deep their champion pools are and how they have a lot of respect for their own ability to play pretty much anything within their wheelhouse. So we're going to be seeing, I expect, Mythi on the Nuke Duck, but perhaps Origin have adapted a couple of G2 tendencies and they'll be flexing some stuff around.
Well, remember, this is patch 9.12, so the recent nerfs to Pyke's wave clear on his abilities have not gone through yet. So the champion is still just as viable in solo lanes as it ever was on this patch. We'll see how Origin want to play that one as we go into the second half of the bans. It's Azir banned away by Origin, keeping the Emperor of Shurima away from the King of North American mid lane as TSM ban out the Gragas.
Interesting that they would ban the Gragas away here. Given that they see the Sejuani, I'm curious as to whether they wonder if the Gragas could maybe be a mid lane pick or a support pick, and they were worried about pairing that up with the Yasuo as well, so they just kind of want to limit that as an option. Remember, the Origin could also flex the Yasuo down towards the bot lane themselves. This could be a Pyke Yasuo bot lane. And while that would be very aggressive, it would also be very European.
So this draft is coming across to me as very European already, in that there are 4 champions locked in, and I know where one of them's going. The other
Do
3
you,
are just
though?
like, all right, okay, well, I guess if we might want to see jungle Nico and top lane Sejuani with a Trinity Force, sure, that might be what we get. I'm gonna mark doubt on that one, but TSM still have 2 more picks to make of their own. Those solo laners are yet to be locked in unless they want to play Trundle top. Akali will be the first pick up there.
So TSM right now, they have a pretty long range comp, very safe bot lane. The Trundle is a good answer to Sejuani, especially early. It gives you a little bit more laning power. And at 6, assuming that the Trundle and Akali are your mid-jungle duo, this is a very strong 2 versus 2 that can allow you to gain priority. TSM is doing a bit of a hover right now.
Come on, come on, come on. No!
Oh, they pivot to the Jace. That is going to be going up towards the top lane for Broken Blade. Now, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that this Neeko is top, the Yasuo is bot, and what we're actually still waiting for is the mid laner for Origin right now.
Let's see what they decide to go for here, as I'm actually willing to bet it's probably another flex pick that gives me no clue as to where they're actually going at all. Ornn is still flexible. He's a little bit less flexible than some other picks. Okay, Yorick's not flexible at all. All right, this actually helps. Thank you, Origin, for throwing me a bone here.
Yep.
So it's going to be the Yorick top up against the Jace, Sejuani in the jungle. That's what I know. Tell me the rest.
So the question ultimately is, will we see the Neeko bot lane or will we see it in mid? The thing about Sejuani Yasuo is, as we already talked about, it does give you a strong 2 versus 2. However, early on, I will give a slight advantage over to the Trundle and the Akali, but it will definitely make for some exciting matchups. However, in terms of the actual laning phase in bot lane, I feel like Yasuo can have a pretty healthy laning phase up against the Ezreal, but it looks like based on the summoner spell choices that this is what they will stick with. They're going to keep with the Neeko in terms of farm, but it's also very safe. In a 1 versus 2, because the amount of wave clear that it has, it gives a lot more freedom for Mithy to roam around the map and work with Cold to try and find picks, especially around the mid.
And that's what I like to see with a pick like Pyke. I don't want to see you sitting in your lane just trying to get a 2v2 advantage. Get out all over the map. As soon as you've got a point in each ability, it's time to start roaming up and down the river. We'll see if Origin can pull that off. Should be an exciting game here. These top laners, too, with the Jace and the Yorick, 2 split pushers looking to take control over their half of the map.
And I'm just really excited for this matchup as well, because I feel like many fans aren't really sure where to rate both Origin and TSM right now. Given that Origin has been struggling over the last few weeks and TSM has had their up and down performances, a convincing win for either of these teams could definitely be big for them as they move on to the rest of the split.
Or a bloodbath could be just as fun to watch one way or the other as we're gearing up to jump into our next game of the day. TSM versus Origin. Number 2 versus number 2 hitting Summoner's Rift here now. As you can hear the crowd start to chant for their favorite teams. TSM chants ringing loud and clear. Origin chants following them up too, of course. As the first thing I want to point out here, Hail of Blades on Cold Sejuani.
Oh.
This is a tech adaptation to deal with Trundle specifically, so he does not get extra resistances from your Aftershock proc and send you into the negatives.
That's smart. I like it a lot. This is the first time I'm personally seeing it, but it definitely makes a lot of sense. As you rightly said, by not proccing the Aftershock, which is one of the big things that Trundle is used to as an answer to the Sejuani, now not having that available, I'd still give the slight advantage in terms of the matchup to the Trundle, but also just being able to proc your E even faster will also help a lot in that 2 versus 2. So I still think we're going to see a lot of early skirmishes around these Rift Scuttlers. We'll see where they look to prioritize, but have a look at what's going on the mini-map right now. Notice how Nukeduck, Cold, and even Mithy are sitting in their own half of the jungle, knowing that the top side has been warded. And so they don't want to give information away right now, but they will be forced to walk over this ward. So TSM will have full insight on what's going on.
All right, they'll clear it out, but notice how that's not the real Nuke Duck.
I got baited.
That is the fake Nuke Duck, my friend. That is actually our friend Patrick hanging out here in the top side of the map. It will be Nuke Duck going towards the bottom lane while Patrick lanes mid. So my
prediction in draft was right. It was the Yasuo Pyke in the bot lane, just not the players that we expected to be picking them. And in terms of matchups, I think this is better for the Neeko. Having a range advantage over the Akali gives you a lot of pressure. And I do think as well that Yasuo can lane fairly safely up against the Ezreal for the most part. So I think that this swap from Origin makes a lot of sense, and I personally quite like it.
Yep, I'm digging it pretty much myself as well as Cold makes his way into the bottom side here. He's gone 1 camp. He went red buff all the way across the map. And now Smoothie has nowhere to go to get to his AD carry. They're going to splat the cat, and that's first blood over to Origin.
Beautifully played by Origin, and what aggressive pathing from Cold. He does his red buff and immediately paths towards bot lane to go for a level 2 gank on Sejuani. Hail of Blades, Sej, demonstrating the power, but they also got an easy target because their focus was Smoothie. Notice how he split off from Sven. He wants to build that passive suite and give Sven the shield, so Nukeduck flashes in to get the knockup onto Sven and says, listen, you have 2 choices here. You either sit here and eat the knockup and maybe keep your support alive, or you flash away and you keep yourself alive at the cost of your support, and Sven made the decision to keep himself alive.
And Origin not only got themselves the kill, they burned the flash from Sven, they burned the heal from Smoothie. Also worth noting, Yuumi usually picks between 3 summoner spells in Heal, Exhaust, and Ignite. The most defensive options were the choice this game from Smoothie, opting for both the Heal and Exhaust to deal with the dive coming in from the Pyke and the Yasuo. And now Mithy going into the bottom lane here yet again as Cold shows up, and they mop Sven up. Acadian shows up, but it's a little too little, a little too late, and Origin are 2 kills on the board.
And typically when you see an Ezreal Yuumi bot lane, you do not expect ganks to come down here. It is usually a lane that is so difficult to actually set up plays onto that you just kind of leave it to farm. You leave it as is. Maybe you can kind of threaten some dives to force them off the tower because of their lack of wave clear, but you really don't look to play through that lane. But Origin are going against that, and they are just hard camping this duel. Look, you can even see Acadian is on the bottom side of the map, but he can't get in position quickly enough to be able to help. And Cold, along with flashing into the duo, paired up with the Yasuo and the Pyke, easy setup, allows them to find another kill, and Origin's bot lane off to a great start.
League of Legends is a game of seconds. Because Cold is there a second and a half early, that means Acadian can't do anything but watch as bottom lane falls to pieces, and Mithy is now in the top lane. Here's what we wanted to see. The Pyke making moves across the map. Alfari is able to land the slow onto Broken Blade. Mithy not gonna grab that hook, but Broken Blade now caught up in the cage, has to flash away.
So they force even more summoner spells in the early game. Origin are just being so proactive on the map right now. Cold forcing ganks bot, Mithy making plays up top, and while Acadian will walk away as the Scuttle Crab victor, Nukeduck in a 1 versus 2 is holding the line.
Windwall, a very useful tool for being able to farm up underneath the turret here. Fires off the Tornado to grab a little bit of extra CS. Plates will go the way of TSM, so they're at least getting something out of the fact that their opponent's support was roaming during this time. But considering they still got the flash from Broken Blade on the top, it'll come out in favor of Origin if they can capitalize on that in the next 5 minutes.
Notice that both Cold and Nukeduck haven't even had an opportunity to go back to base yet. They're still sitting on a lot of this passive gold that they've been picking up from all these kills, and now Cold will have the opportunity to spend it. So this allows Sven and Smoothie to play a little bit more aggressively. They have better vision lines set up towards bot, and they have a lot more wards controlling the topside river. So for now, TSM feel like they have a little bit more control over the entirety of the map. But you still have to bear in mind, where is Mithy? Where is Cold? What lane will they look to play towards next? And I think that given the summoner spells are still down towards bot, I would quite like to see Cold make another trip to this duo down bot lane.
Based on what you told me before this game, Vedius, about how Origin want to take down TSM, get some revenge for Mithy, they're playing to that right now with both those kills having themselves occur in this bottom side of the map here. No kills going over to the Yasuo himself, so Nukeduck not getting them is suboptimal, but considering they've still got them, that's something to work with as Mithy goes for the flash play onto Sven, who is going to be taken very low. Couple more auto attacks will do it, and that is a 3rd one for Origin.
Beautifully done by Origin. They don't even need their jungler, as now Bjergsen goes on to Patrick. Trundle on the wings.
Acadian shows up, but a level 5 Trundle doesn't have a lot to offer after Patrick has already disengaged. Bjergsen did a good job getting the ultimate out of Patrick, but had to use his own to do it. And now that TSM has shown where they are, Origin goes after the Infernal Drain.
Now, it's very dangerous for TSM to go for any kind of fight here when Alfari has a teleport advantage. This means that not only do Sven and TSM have a man down, but there's the risk of turning into a 5 versus 3 as well. So given the state of the map, there's no real risk of getting ganked here. Nukeduck and Mithy know that their jungler is nearby. Sven feels that they have okay vision control around the bot side of the map, and they can play in this setup. But Mithy lands such a clean hook between all those minions to set up onto Sven that they're able to just find that kill. And only now are the summoner spells back up for the TSM duo. But Nukeduck has hit level 6. He has already completed his Berserker's Greaves, and what could have been a challenging lane is now heavily in the favor of Origin.
Origin definitely taking over this early game here. 3 kills to 0. Infernal Drake under the belt, also having about a 700-ish gold lead at 7 minutes into the game. Feels pretty solid for these guys. TSM yet to get themselves a kill anywhere, but have only died in the bottom lane. Top side even on farm, but the thing is about being even on farm in a Jace lane, Jace isn't supposed to go even.
Yeah, and as the game progresses, this matchup is only going to get harder for the Jays as well. Early laning phase, we saw Broken Blade was actually building up a pretty solid advantage, but that roam from Mithy up towards top lane to force the flash was so valuable because it now forces Broken Blade to play on the defense as another play happens bot.
Bottom side popping off once again. Sven going to be taken low. Acadian going into the back line. Nuke Duck gets himself away. A nice knock up to disengage that one, and TSM will not get their kill.
Now, the advantage for TSM is that the jungler is on the top side of the map, so while they will lose their blue buff, they can look to play for a couple of plates, and there's no real assistance. They just have to be careful of this ward that sits behind them, and the teleport that is available on both Patrick and Alfari.
Origin are deciding, though, since TSM is hard committing to the bottom side of the map, why not go for the top? Broken Blade keeping himself alive ever so barely. How far he's able to make that kill go through, and now it might just be a second. Patrick shows up to the party a little bit late, but he's in time to grab the kill, and that is 5-0 for Origin.
Origin are taking everything right now and are even holding the line in the bot lane. Notice that they still have 4 plates available, so even in a 2 versus 3, TSM cannot secure any plates. Origin makes the cross-map play happen, and it turns out beautifully. So again, Origin know where the enemy jungler is. They know they can force this play. They also know that they can match teleports because Patrick is just going back to base. So even if Bjergsen TPs him towards the top side of the map, they're always going to be at a numbers disadvantage. So beautifully executed from the side of Origin. TSM now 0-5 in the kill score.
TSM at least finally attempts something, but when the attempts don't work out, you're in a really bad place. Smoothie barely keeps himself alive by attaching to Sven after the last breath connects, but Nuke Duck is not yet done. He continues going forward, forcing Sven back underneath the turret. Get used to that view, my friend.
This 2 versus 2 is extremely difficult for Sven and Smoothie right now. If Mithy had not missed that X, that duo could be at risk of dying, but no ultimates are available right now. The risk of a dive is real, though, as you'll notice. Patrick and Cold making their way down.
It could be the 4-man team play in the bottom lane from Origin. Instead, they are going to back themselves away, settle with taking the Scuttle Crab in the bottom part of the river. Acadian goes for the Rift Herald as soon as it spawns in the top lane. Plays weren't working out on the bottom half of the map, wants to invest up here topside instead. Cold wanders through mid. Doesn't really even care that his opponents now know where he is. Instead, it's going to be Origin making sure they get up to the top side of the map as fast as possible towards that Rift Herald pit, making sure that Acadian is not there. He had disengaged from his attempt earlier, and Origin will clear out that control ward. Mithy's up here in the top half of the map now as well, and it's Origin going after Shen.
So TSM saw that the potential dive was happening bot, so it was smart of Acadian and Bjergsen to walk up towards the Rift Herald and look to try and trade this objective. The problem is that the moment Mithy disappeared, they now recognize, okay, the ability of Origin to collapse on us in this Rift Herald is so quick that we have to disengage. So TSM are just running out of options and are just getting forced off of every single objective. That's just because of how quickly Origin is moving on the map. They're utilizing pressure in bot to translate that into mid, and now they're going to secure their first tower of the game up topside.
Shelly dropped when the turret has less than 2 plates of health, means it will be taken down instantly. First turret gold plus all the associated plates goes over to Origin, who are now 3,500 gold ahead. 11 minutes into this game. Shelly's still pushing down the top lane. Alfari's going to get another charge off with that one onto the tier 2. Nuke Duck continues to defend the bottom side, despite the fact that Origin has been all over the map. Mithy rotating all over the place. Look at Nuke Duck's farm compared to Sven. He's not behind at all.
Nope, no, he is not. Nuke Duck, he did admittedly get a lot of help during the laning phase.
Yes, sir.
But right now he's sitting very comfortably in the 1 versus 1. Looks like he's working towards that static shiv. And typically what I would say here is I'd love to see TSM setting up around the Drake while all those plays were happening topside, but I don't even know if they can look to fight for this Drake right now. And I think it would be extremely dangerous given that Patrick is going to make this rotation down. Broken Blade does have teleport though, so does Alfari.
This is going to turn into a bloody one real quick here, Betty, as TSM, Infernal Drake down to about 2/3, 1/3, 1/4. Acadian's able to secure that one. TSM back themselves away. How did that not turn into a bloody one?
Looks like Origin made the choice of rather than going for the fight, they just wanted to commit to plates towards the other, to the bot lane. Just get more gold onto Nuke Duck, go for a steal onto the Drake. They felt like it was pretty safe because it's Sejuani. Mithy just barely misses another hook there. So TSM will pick up their objective. There was the potential risk there, but they felt pretty confident given that Broken Blade was at topside. But given the gold disparity, that could have ended in disaster. But they will walk away with the objective. and now they're still kind of working towards those item spikes. And I feel like for TSM, what they need to do is just buy a little bit more time. I feel like they can't force anything until the Akali completes the Gunblade. You need Jace to at least complete an item. Looks like that he's going to go for either some early lethality very early on. And then once these are done, then maybe they can look to try and force a play somewhere on the map. But given how much control Origin have right now, they have to be very careful about where they choose to make a play.
Patrick going in towards Bjergsen there, recognizing that he hit the Tangle Barbs means he wanted to commit with everything. Bjergsen gets free of the root long enough, or quickly enough, I should say, to escape the follow-up Pop Blossom. So Alphari can't make a kill happen there with his rotation, but he'll get back up to topside in time to intercept this wave from Broken Blade. Origin just responding to the TSM movements across the map. That Drake was the first time TSM found success with a play they made this game. I'm glad to see that the early game not going their way didn't dissuade them from still trying to make a move that they thought could pay off. Having a 1-to-1 Infernal comparison is a pretty huge difference compared to a 2-0, and it keeps them in the running for this mid-game.
Gideon tries to flash over the E, but he's still looking for Patrick, who has no flash.
Patrick, can you get out of this one? Cold shows up, throws the ulti down onto the enemy mid laner to disengage here once again. Acadian going to be brought down to 300 HP, and here comes Alphari. He'll dig him an early grave, throws out the slow, and collects that paycheck.
You can see what Acadian was trying to do, but the execution just was not there. Getting, targeting, ooh, Bjergsen goes in.
Nicely done, picking up Patrick on the back end of the fight.
Ooh, and Broken Blade will even walk away with the blue buff. So at the very least, TSM is able to get something back on the map. However, in terms of control, it is definitely not that. Bot lane plates have been going down. The entire topside jungle of TSM is littered with Origin wards, and now they're going for Bjergsen.
Bjergsen holding 1v3 here in the mid lane, does still have the Shroud available. As long as Akali's got that, you're not really too worried about anybody blowing you up completely, as Broken Blade has to just keep sitting up here in top lane. Not in the way a Jace would like to, though. When you're the one sitting underneath your turret 15 minutes into the game, the early game has not gone your way, and Mithy makes his way up here yet again. Looking to fire off the hook, will not find the accuracy on that one. I mean, not going to stop pushing up anyway, so Alphari will collide that minion wave into the turret here once more. Mithy will continue sweeping out vision through the top half of the TSM jungle, and it was kind of an anomaly, really, when Sven and Mithy joined the side of TSM. Nuke Duck, he loses out on the trade, but Bjergsen waits for the tornado before going back in. Acadian coming around from behind. Nuke Duck outplaying so far, but can he do it again? Goes for the flash into the tornado to find the damage, instead gonna find his own death. Acadian puts the second one on the board here for TSM.
Bit of a misplay there from Nuke Duck. You can see he wanted to try and land the knock-up onto Bjergsen so that he could ulti and hopefully get the kill. He also would have bought enough time for Alphari to TP in, who's now in a 1v1 against Broken Blade.
Alphari just beating Broken Blade into the ground. No way out, as now they're going to look to find even more. Alphari has to go into the stasis to keep himself alive. Maiden going to be tanking up the turret. Bjergsen taken down by Cold. Here comes more backup. Ben wants to move in. Mop and Bucket at the ready. Trying to fire off a little bit of damage with Smoothie's help, but he won't be able to grab anyone. Origin have found themselves multiple kills. No deaths in return. Sven is rooted up. They'll pop him. And why not take the loot pinata bonus? The cat pops out and goes down. Ace for Origin.
Origin are obliterating TSM right now. I wanted to see TSM try and make a play towards bot side. I felt like that was the best opportunity they had to get a little bit of control back on the map. And this dive, I think, was pretty solid. Finding a pick onto Nuke Duck, starting off this play, because if they can get this tower, they have a couple more options. But again, Nuke Duck is just buying so much time. He nearly gets this kill onto Bjergsen, just misses the Q knockup there. Broken Blade then teleports in, and you think at this point, well, they have 3 members, but because TSM faltered on their execution, 2 members are forced to base. So now Broken Blade is left in this 1 versus 1. He still doesn't have his flash. Alphari has a red buff as well, so he can run him down. And while all that's happening, Mithy has made his way all the way to the bot lane. Now, yes, he does miss this Q.
And the ulti afterwards.
But he does end up, and the ulti afterwards, exactly. But he ends up landing the Ignite, he ends up finding the kill, and it's just kind of like TSM trying to reactively turn what was a bad situation into something redeemable, and it ends up just getting worse and worse. Really good route there from Patrick into the ulti follow-up. Means that they can very quickly shut down the bot lane, and honestly, they should have been trying to generate pressure somewhere else on the map, because there was going to be very little that they could do in that situation.
Things are looking grim here for the side of TSM. Down 7,000 gold. Another Drake going the way of Origin. This EU #2 team is popping off so far. TSM have got to find a way to stem this bleeding, but it seems like every time they go to make a move, Origin is just making a move one step ahead of them. 2 turrets to 0 still. TSM have yet to take down anything on the Origin lines. Even if you look at the state of the turrets on the Origin side, still most of the health in both top and mid lane. Only turret below half even is that bottom lane turret that was beset by sieges as Mithy roamed around in the early part of the game. Mithy 3-0-2 on this Pike, and what I was saying earlier was this guy didn't click with TSM, but it clearly wasn't an issue with him or Sven being bad players. As we've seen since their separation, they've both found success, but Mithy on Origin is just a completely different monster from the guy we saw on TSM.
And usually we don't see him on champions like Pike, so the fact that he's been making so many impactful map movements has been a very exciting to see. And we'll see how much more he can do in the rest of this game. He's now grouped up once again with his jungler, with Alfari. We talked a little bit about this in the draft, where you just kind of want to be moving with a couple of your teams, set up this kind of dunk squad, this pick comp, so you can look for these small opportunities to gain pressure. And right now they set up full vision control around the top side jungle. So I want to see now Origin try and force a play in mid, while TSM are committing members down towards bot.
TSM trying to take down this remaining tier 1, and Patrick's just waiting on the wings in case they dive Nuke Duck. He would be ready with the Pop Blossom. Not gonna happen just yet. Origin, meanwhile, saying, all right, TSM's committing towards the bottom side. Once again, we will recognize where they are investing resources, invest elsewhere, and get the drop on them by taking the objective first. That is 4 turrets to 0 for the side of Origin, and 8,000 gold lead. Look at how that gold is spread out. A 3,000 advantage for Alfari over Broken Blade.
Wow.
When you look at a matchup between split pushers like Yorick and Jace, 3K gold is a death sentence.
Yes, Yorick naturally outscales the Jace, but in the early laning phase, that was supposed to be the difficult part. And again, you have to give all the credit to Mithy. His roam top, forcing the flash out from Broken Blade. Now they've caught Broken Blade.
Oh boy, yep, that's a Padlin. Cold takes him down. Rampage over to Sejuani, 4-0-5. Hail of Blades is doing good work this game, Vedius.
It certainly is. Love this adaptation that we've seen working out very nicely, and we haven't been able to see the same kind of jungle aggression coming out from Acadian. TSM are struggling in terms of what answers they have against this Origin pressure right now. Honestly, it's very difficult for them. We've already seen them try to commit multiple members to a single side lane to secure an objective. However, Origin is just so far ahead that even against the likes of Nuke Duck or Alfari, they can't dive. They can't set up these plays because of how strong they actually are. And once that Infinity Edge gets completed for Nuke Duck, I mean, that'll be a very scary time for TSM.
Then just trying to farm up here in the mid lane, but can't even get close enough to the minion wave to try to shoot a Mystic shot at the cannon minion because Mithy is just waiting there for him. Then we'll get that one at the very end of its lifespan there as Origin still looking for what play they want to make happen next. TSM are pretty confined to their side of the map, Betty, as the vision is not doing them any favors.
So notice how Origin are conceding Baron control because they know how strong their split pushers are, so they're actually just committing to playing towards the strong side. So even though TSM have gained all this river control up towards top, Origin are just forcing their way through their strong side of the map, and it's allowing them to gain all these extra objectives. And notice now, look, they can just rotate up to mid because of how many TSM members have to be sent just to deal with this 3-man unit of Origin.
Mithy gets himself away there. You can see that Acadian committed the subjugate because they thought there might have been a chance to pick Mithy off, but this is Pike. Ladies and gentlemen, this is exactly what this champion is capable of doing. Taken down to 30% HP, immediately heals right back up, and he's back to fishing around looking for those picks, sweeping out some vision. And you'll see if maybe you can find a hook here. Will pull Sven back, but a good buffering on the Arcane Shift, and Sven gets away.
And I feel kind of bad for North American teams because you guys don't really have a lot of Pike players. You don't have people that like are very.
We have NA Pike, thank you very much. He's like EU Pike, but just you switch the first 2 numbers in his KDA.
And unfortunately, when you go up against the likes of many of what we have over in Europe, like Pikes don't sit in lane, right? They spend a lot of time constantly roaming, and that extra invisible pressure that it adds means you're kind of forced to always play on the defensive. And like we saw it from Broken Blade in the early laning phase, we've seen a lot from Bjergsen in early laning too. Like it limits your options, and especially if you've already fallen behind early and you can't gain vision control in River, like it's just so much harder to deal with. So Mithy so far having a great game, 3-0-3. Massive props to Cold as well. We already talked a lot about how strong this Hail of Blades Sejuanias, and now we just want to see how Origin's set up for the Baron. I think they should prioritize on finding picks, because I think that the Baron is the one way in which TSM can come back into this game, and they're just so strong right now that it's a lot easier for them to just control these parts of the map and constantly force TSM to Fog of War, with which, honestly, is the perfect environment for Origin to succeed.
Well, the one advantage that TSM have in a situation like this is TSM brought 3 teleports to the table compared to the 2 on the side of Origin. So that might be one thing that TSM can leverage here to try to get the sort of jump on someone like Alphari. But honestly, Vedius, this Yorick is so beefy at this point in time, I don't even know if I want to 2v1 him, because he's just going to bring the shovel down on somebody. You're going to have to bring even more bodies to the party as Nuke Duck and Cold decide they don't need anything more than the 2 of them to take down this Baron, and honestly, I can't argue with it.
Nope. Cold is extremely strong. TSM will have an awareness of what is going on. And now they're going to try and force a play mid.
TP coming in. TSM looking to stop this, but Baron's already going to be taken. And with that one in Origin's pocket, TSM has to disengage, call off any sort of a play they were looking for.
And we were already told the last spam.
Oh, no.
We were talking about it before where Origin, I feel like they just didn't need to force the Baron. They should try and utilize picks. And again, the way in which Origin utilized the Fog of War, they created so much darkness and mystery that TSM didn't really want to move anywhere and couldn't get onto the map at all. And that just allowed the opportunity for Cold and Nuke Duck to duo away the Baron. And TSM had no answers for it. So now they're on their last legs. They're looking for this base defense. 11,000 is the goal deficit. Let's see if they can find a miracle play back in.
11,000, you're pretty much at the point where you're depending on Origin to make a mistake at this point. You need your opponents to overcommit. You need them to overextend themselves. Go for some sort of a hero play, because that sort of a gold deficit, it doesn't matter how good of an initiation you get unless you're SKT versus EDG 2 worlds ago. Being down 10,000 gold is normally not a winnable situation, but Nuke Duck will continue pushing up here in the bottom side, already with that 100% crit chance, working on the next item, getting even tankier. Bjergsen going in onto Mithy here, trying to find something. The angle isn't quite right on the Yuumi ultimate to get the lockdown on him, but Patrick is going to be taken very low himself. Has to flash away. Now Cole going to be on the front line there, able to find the lockdown onto Acadian. Broken Blade approaching in from the side. Patrick going to be taken down to 100 HP. Origin trying to turn this fight around. They're doing a lot of work here. It's TSM who cannot find any kills just yet. Alphari down to 1/3. Cold fires off the ulti to disengage. Not going to find anybody there with a direct hit on that one, but the slow field will keep TSM at bay. All the meanwhile, this was a 4v5. Nuke Duck still pushing up in the bottom side.
I liked what TSM tried to do there. They had the numbers advantage in mid, and it was easy for them to almost find a big pick onto Mithy, but the mobility from the Pike was enough to get out of that situation. And then it almost actually baited Patrick into a very awkward situation, and he walked away with like 5 HP, but that was almost a big pick for TSM that would have bought them a little bit more time, wasted the Baron time a little bit more, and as long as they can keep their inhibitors alive, then TSM is in a much more comfortable position. But I feel like Origin should be looking to play a little bit more on 3 lanes, because in that situation, they ended up all grouping up, and so they couldn't utilize the pressure that was being applied mid in order to take one of the 2 side towers in top of them.
Well, that second Cloud Drake for Origin seems really good for them this game, being able to have that extra speed to run down TSM to find those catches, as well as rotate in between the lanes, as that turret is going to fall in the bottom side here, meaning inhibitor exposed for the first time in this game. 26 minutes in, that's how long it took Origin to crack the base. Still 40 seconds left on Baron if they want to try to buff up one of these waves and make another powerful push. Alphari in that top lane, putting in some work onto the tier 3 up there. That one's going to fall now as well, as Mithy in the bottom lane could be cut out here yet again. Yuumi ulti, not going to find the lockdown. Mithy flashing away after 2 connect. Cold trying to keep himself alive. Looking to turn this one right back around, and they've done it! Cold keeps himself alive. Bjergsen's not able to find the Shuriken, and Origin still not losing anyone in this fight. Meanwhile, Alphari knocking on the door to the Nexus turrets, knocking them down. One already out of the picture, as Origin will continue their siege.
Cold just barely walking away with his life thanks to the Triumph, and TSM fail once again to find a pick. Their base is now falling apart as all 5 members of Origin continue to push in.
That was such a Chad play from Cold. He was at 100 HP, said, nope, we're fighting. just turned around, hit him with the flail, and made sure he got the kill before he fell down. He knew that he was going to go down swinging, and sometimes you get rewarded with never even having to see the black and white screen. 4-0-6 on this Sejuani. 10 out of 13 KP, highest in the game. This guy's popping off.
And Origin, once again, not choosing to take any risks. Very much the Origin style. They know that if things go as planned, then they should end up winning this game. So just go back to base, spend your gold, complete a couple more items, because why not? You're already so strong. Let's just add a GA to the level 16 Yorick
why not?
to make his split pushing even more unstoppable. And now TSM is in this extremely dire situation where, as we already mentioned, they're kind of relying on Origin to make a mistake. Maybe they get too greedy. Maybe they try and dive on Nexus towers. Maybe they mess up on their setup around the Baron.
That's what you need.
That's what you need, because Origin just have so much control over the entire map right now.
Origin having the Warmogs on their Sejuani now means next time Cold drops down to 100 HP, he won't even have to bother galloping back to the base. Instead, he'll just heal right up. Makes that much more threatening on the front lines. Over 3,000 health on this guy. Pretty much impossible to burst down. Doesn't even need the Aftershock to be extra tanky. Acadian does at least have the Zeke's Convergence up on his Trundle, but when you compare the gold value between these two, it's about 3,500 gold difference between the two junglers. And on a role that doesn't have the highest income in the game to begin with, that is absolutely substantial. As you can see, Acadian and the rest of TSM just bracing for impact here, trying to make sure that Origin can't move up as freely as they'd like to, but Origin will still take control over this jungle. You can see TSM vision lines just barely trying to creep out of the base with a single ward here and there, but they are mostly confined to these walls. Nuke Duck winning out in the 1v1 against Bjergsen, who now has to retreat as Origin once again press the attack.
Just a couple of hits and Bjergsen lost half his HP. He now doesn't have his ulti available. Origin now pushing in mid, top, and bot. They have their eyes set on the Nexus.
Nuke Duck going into the back line, looking to find that initiation. Mithy goes unstoppable. TSM goes down. Origin have chased the remaining 3 members into the fountain, looking to clean up even more kills. Bjergsen wants to grab one, but he won't be able to find it. Nuke Duck takes him out. The Maiden eats the laser, and that is all she wrote. Origin keeps the EU win streak alive.
Mithy gets his revenge up against Sven. A very important win for Origin, and a very convincing one as well. The early game plays from Cold was so impressive. Level 2 Sejuani, Hail of Blades
From red
played.
across the map.
Yep. That was absolutely crazy. And then like he came back, he kept the pressure up, he wanted to make sure that this duo had a healthy laning phase, and then, because he hadn't had an opportunity to base yet, Mithy goes back to base first, and then roams top. He's like, hey man, I understand that you're in a bit of a losing matchup, but let me help. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It was just really great teamwork coming out from Origin, and this was kind of what they were praised for last split. So I think they're going to be very happy with this performance.
All right, let's press the rewind here for a moment. Do you remember back at the start of this game when you said people are having a hard time judging the power level of these teams and saying, all right, if you have a substantial win here over your opponent, that says something as to, hey, we're definitely the better number 2 from Spring. Well, 3-17 speaks pretty loudly, I'd say. Origin had nothing less than an absolute stomping of TSM.
And they did it in a very EU style as well, with the creative draft, something that we are pretty well known for so far, given the MSI and like the Pike pick. Perhaps the Pike won't be as prevalent on the next patch. We'll have to see how EU teams adapt. Maybe they'll find something new, but TSM definitely going to be frustrated with that performance. It's tough to say whether they necessarily did anything really wrong. It felt like the Origin just kind of had their number multiple times in the early game, and just every time TSM tried to do something, Origin shut them down.
That's what stood out to me the most, is that both teams were trying to make moves. It's not like TSM just sat there and did nothing the entire game. We saw TSM go for plays. We saw them trying to commit people for a turret bottom side. We saw them try to make a play happen in a couple different spots, but Origin just always seemed to be able to effectively nullify that and then either counteract it, or even more frequently, just make a better play somewhere else.
Yes, and I think there were a couple moments where it also hurt TSM with like the Acadian flash in mid lane that didn't quite pan out, and they tried to set up that dive bot where the execution was a little bit poor, but that just kind of only already made the bleeding worse when TSM were already covered in cuts.
Well, it was a very convincing win for Origin, and to give us a little more about it, let's hand it off to Avli for an interview with the Origin support.
Win, you know. But, Thanks, guys. Mithy, congratulations on the win. Now, this is your first game back returning to North America since you left us, and you spent it beating your old team and your longtime lane partner, Sven. Was this the return that you were hoping for?
Honestly, yeah. Like the way it went, everything just. I'm just really happy with the way things went. Yeah.
Yeah, and the last time that you were on TSM, we saw that there was like a lot of internal struggles and kind of like drama trying to figure out how to kind of revive the team. So tell me about what it's like being on Origin and kind of compare that for me.
Yeah, I mean, I just felt like the 5 guys, we didn't just mesh well enough, and we got a lot of support, and we really tried a lot of things. So I learned a lot about what worked for me, at least, because I really had a lot of self-reflection to do there and see what it was that makes a good team and so on and so forth. And yeah, it just feels like in Origin things click faster and it's just easier to talk about problems and everyone's more open. And it's not like it wasn't like that in TSM. It's just, I don't know, sometimes it just clicks, and right now it's clicking for me much better here. So I'm just happy to be in Origin.
And we got to see you give Sven a hug on the other side when you were doing the handshake. Have you had a chance to catch up with him since you've come?
A little bit. Honestly, like the whole hugging thing is pretty weird, because when you lose, you don't really, like, you just want to shake hands and just, like look at the game, and just like your head is somewhere else. So it feels really awkward for me to hug. Not that it's weird for me to hug Sven, or Björk for that matter. It's just I know how it is when you lose and you have to hug because we're on camera. So yeah, I didn't really know exactly what to do, but yeah, I mean, I did catch up with him a little bit, and I'm hoping to keep catching up with him whenever we find the time.
I think it's fine. You're all friends, just showing that support. But speaking of maybe a new friendship, our next game is Cloud9 versus Fnatic. North America needs a win right now. They need a little help. So what advice would you give to Cloud9 to knock Fnatic over?
I mean, I think it's good that C9 is trying to stick to their guns. It didn't really work against G2, but I don't know what works against them, to be honest. So, I feel like it's a good idea, like a good approach from them, and they just keep doing the same thing. Stick to your own guns, do what you do best, and see if that is good enough.
Yeah, we're gonna see if that works. But Mithy, thank you and congratulations again. And for more on the game, let's hear from the State Farm Analyst Desk.
Thank you, Avali. As Origin completes the sweep for the EU teams across the first 3 games of the day, we welcome Deficio.
It says Ender.
Not so much Ender, although feel free to follow Ender on Twitter, the newest addition to the LAC team. I'm sure he could use the boost.
He can't even defend himself.
to the social stats. But Deficio has joined us here on the desk, and he instructed me to correct all credit, all drafting credit was to go to Deficio for this Origin draft this time around. Well drafted, my friend.
Yeah.
And from here in the Analyst Desk studio, that was an impressively done draft.
The players, we have this thing, I can just think it and they instantly get it.
The main question I had then was, were you also drafting for the show match?
Well,
the draft there didn't look as good.
No, it did not. We had one strategy for the show match, I can just say that, and we kind of did it with Origin here as well, was take the Sejuani early, but then NA took it.
And then they
and then we didn't have anything. But NA didn't take it today.
But it didn't happen
They didn't take it today.
If we take a look at the drafting, though, here for Origin, once again, we have a Yasuo draft that ends up kind of essentially being able to go wherever it wants. Yes. Origin flexes it down to the bot lane alongside that Pyke. And attention towards the bot lane seems to be the name of the tournament right now, the way the teams are playing.
100%. I think there's a lot of CC setups you can play with in bot lane. There's a lot of different all-in compositions, like the Yasuo in this case with the Pyke, that can be super, super annoying to deal with. In this case here, obviously, early ganking a Yuumi, trying to punish her for not having her flash. And the moment you get the first kill, you have to keep going. You're playing Pyke Yasuo. You're never going to stop.
Yeah, exactly. And they were able to execute it really, really well. Not only did Mithy get to beat Sven, he gets to do it playing a flashy champion, playing the Pyke.
Yeah.
And I think it's exciting to see Origin, I think, break away from some of more of the expected norms for them. Like, this was more of a G2 style of play with flexes moving everywhere, and your bot laner is playing mid, your mid laner is playing bot. And I think that this is one of the biggest strengths that Europe has been bringing to Rift Rivals and having, in general, is that we're talking through that draft, and even you, as the general manager of Origin, weren't exactly positive who was going to be piloting what, right? It's like, How is the other coach supposed to know and you don't even know?
And then you also have this situation for TSM. They're on blue side, which makes a lot of sense. It is considered the stronger side right now. They go into the second phase. They have to pick their solo laners. They want to grab things that technically they could actually swap between. Jace could go mid, Akali could go top lane. And then you play against a player like Alfari, who is basically 15, 20 champions in his pool, saying, well, actually, things like a Yorick here is good against both things. I can grab it. What are they going to do? They put the Jace top lane against it. You get ganked once.
Yep.
Yorick gets to 5 or 6 and then, destroys them.
And you still see that rigidity in Champion Select for North American teams really coming back to bite them, while the added flexibility for the EU teams, especially when you take into account a lot of these bot lane players, Perks, Patrick, willing to play non-traditional, ADCs or, just move away from marksman entirely. Again, how much more that opens. Yes, the Jace could have gone mid, but you were never concerned that the Jace was going to go bot lane, but it was something you had to consider for the side of Origin the entire time. So adding that kind of third element into Champion Select is what is seeming to be so difficult for NA teams to pick through.
Yeah, I mean, they're getting so many, counter picks and kind of really strong lane matchups and then playing very well to them, right? As you say, using the Yorick, which works well both against the Akali as well as the Jace. You bring this super aggressive all-in bot lane, which Yuumi can really struggle against because Yuumi, so much of the damage in the early game is through auto attacks. If Yuumi detaches, she's incredibly vulnerable. If she is attached, you just don't have enough output with an Ezreal and a Yuumi to ever compete with the Pyke and the Yasuo. So I think the flexibility of the European teams is really showing through and getting them these strong lane matchups, which they're then having the skill to execute on.
Shout out to Patrick going mid for the first time with Nico. Lane against Bjergsen, obviously did really well. But I also got to say, just like looking at the draft, the moment the Yuumi came in as first pick, I was like, not revealing any strategy, but like Mithy might have in some pregame talks said, guys, we should draft something where we can hard camp the bot lane. So, Yuumi, fairly easy to gank and actually like shut down. Mithy against Sven, he gets his chance to like set up a bunch of plays on Pyke, which is not normally something he's actually been showing a lot on stage, but good to see.
And again, I think we're also seeing here how quick pace the EU teams are prepared to play the game-winning fight, essentially, where the nail was put into the coffin came 16 minutes into the game. I mean, come on, we can't even... The Baron hasn't spawned yet, and the EU teams are coming away with wins.
So we're actually saving Nuke Dog here. We're not showing his Q flash that missed just before when he died, but we are seeing Alfari at this point on Yorick, who can just do whatever he wants.
Yeah, exactly. At a certain point, once the Jace is behind, there's no escaping from Yorick. He's not able to 1v1 him at all. Gets absolutely destroyed. All of Origin collapsing to this bottom lane to just wipe TSM off the map.
And at this point, like, the comp is already crazy and fun to watch, and you can literally just make plays in every lane because you have actually carried in every single lane. You also have Cold on Sejuani, who played an absolutely amazing game. So TSM just get completely run over, and I'm not just going to blame it on draft or anything. I just think the European teams, as you highlighted with early game, players are allowed to be very aggressive. Players are allowed to take 50-50s, trusting in their mechanical skill that they can actually execute it. And I think that is the way the game is intended to be played right now.
Yeah, and I think we're seeing, some of the reasoning why things like Yuumi, as well as the Sonateric, are not as popular in Europe, because people are fully prepared, with these aggressive picks to punish them. In Europe on 9-12, it's something like 4 picks, 4 bans for Yuumi. In NA, it's something like 16 bans and 4 picks, right? Like, it is being considered such a big threat.
Right.
Easily handled here. Sonateric banned almost all the time in NA. Easily handled by G2 with the types of lanes that you just don't see in North America. And I think that these North American teams are going to have to adjust and adjust very quickly. Otherwise, the LEC is running away with it.
Right. I mean, so is the takeaway here, the prevailing takeaway, that Europe at the moment has identified the correct way to play League of Legends? For North America, it's going to be about speeding up their ability to play and even pulling in a couple new picks within the next 2 days?
Probably. I mean, it's very hard now to disagree with that statement.
Yeah,
right.
It's like, oh, no, I think Europe is playing it
They're
all
playing
wrong.
it correctly.
What a weird meta.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I think with NA, like, even you can win, obviously, with these kind of stuff.
I mean, Mithy just said, stick to your guns,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
But I think is that then stating that the barrier of execution or the amount of outplay that you have to come to the table with, or overperformance you have to come to the table with, is amplified because you can't play the picks that Europe is playing?
It might be actually that case. I think at least don't shoot yourself in the foot. Like with C9's first game draft, where it's like Sonateric and Kindred. I was like, hang on, you don't even have a jungler now in the early game who can actually try and help you when you have this instant losing bot lane that Sonateric always is. And then you also have, you counterpick yourself with Gnar when there's already a Yasuo, so you just had like losing lanes everywhere. At least don't go to that point. try and even out the early game by having picks that can actually contest teams that will fight you in the early game, and then see if you can get past the first 15 minutes without being too far down.
Well, pressure is mounting for the North American teams as they suffer their third loss in a row. We are stepping away, but on the other side, Cloud9 challenges Fnatic in Game 5, so don't go anywhere.
Looking to use the flash, get these stuns, get some kills. Here comes the damage. Broken Blade will be taken down, but one more auto attack seals the deal. You win! Now Smoothie has nowhere to go to get to his 80 carry. They're gonna splat the cat. Broken Blade keeping himself alive ever so barely. How far he's able to make that kill go through, and now it might just be a second. Patrick shows up to the party a little bit late, but he's in time to grab the kill.
We can fight the duo. Fight them. Maybe go on Ezreal, no flash Ezreal? No, that's good enough. That's good enough.
Just help. We get tower, boss. We get tower.
I'm going on this guy.
Okay. So good. He can get Yumi also, I think.
I'll bang with Clone.
I stun. Nice, guys.
Snoop Duck going into the back line, looking to find that initiation. Minty goes unstoppable. TSM goes down. Origin have chased the remaining 3 members into the fountain, looking to clean up even more kills. Origin keeps the EU win streak alive.
I played Echo versus Victor at Worlds last year. Didn't go so hot.
It has been a completely different story. Vice might continue. He doesn't ult in time. What a shot from Bwipo, getting the solo kill. Licorice not up for the match.
I'm pretty sure that's what people know about it.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure
that's kind of like the connotation when we talk, but I think we got over that. I mean, I hope so.
Yeah.
Because like the thing is more like the problem I had with it was more that I was surprised that you guys let that one pass. Like, was it like, I still don't know why you guys did it. Like, I understand why, because it was like a champion that was really OP.
Yeah.
And you had to find an answer, but...
I don't know. It was just tough. We were losing like a bunch of scrims that last week. We like couldn't scrim, basically.
Oh, I see.
So then my coach was just like, okay, like nothing we were trying was working. So he was like, okay, we don't want to like pull a Victor because we haven't been able to make it work. So it's like, find something that's good into it. I'm like, okay, I'll do my best.
I see.
And then I just like in solo queue and like custom game 1v1s, I just like try to figure out counters and found Echo.
I feel like that was where our interaction started, and it was on the bad foot.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't know bad feelings, right? Like, it's just...
Yeah. No, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, it happened. We lost.
It happened. Other than that, I think that's the only interaction we've had in the past 2 years, I guess.
We're just top laners apart from that, yeah.
C9 and leaving things up against Fnatic. Name a more iconic duo.
Myself and feeding on Zyra.
And quick shot. Come on. Poor
He's
guy.
old news, man.
Poor guy's gonna feel left out there, sitting across the pond right now, watching the team smash. Welcome back to Rift Rivals 2019, powered by Alienware, for our final clash of day one, Cloud9 versus Fnatic. Both teams fielded substitute and/or second-string junglers in their first matches of the day, but both teams are bringing back their superstar junglers in Broxa and Svenskeren for this one. So that's what I want to talk about, the jungle matchup and how these two players might stack up.
Yeah, and I think Broxa is the main reason that Fnatic are 6-0 in Europe. This guy, every single game, is like 2 or 3 early kills, snowballs the entire team, can play, like, can execute mechanically and all these, like, big picks where he can like carry from the jungle, and he's really annoying to play against.
Yeah, I mean, he has been so good. Their game against G2, I've talked about it, a number of times already, but like that was the Broxa show. It felt like just dismantled G2 in the early game, and I think it's a large part of Fnatic's incredible early game has been Broxa getting these lanes ahead and sacrificing his own farm. This is not a guy that's going to power farm in the jungle. He's going to give up camps. He's going to get his lanes ahead, and he's going to allow them to carry. And he's been so impressive to watch. But on the other side, Svenskeren has been having an absolute hell of a season so far in the summer split. He is first across like 10 categories as far as junglers go in NA. So if there was one player to match up to him right now, it'd probably be Svenskeren.
Now here's the very interesting thing when you play against Fnatic. I think they flip a coin in draft in terms of do we camp mid or bot lane this game. They will pick one of them, and then they will hard camp the lane. Like 3 early ganks from Broxa if it's mid lane, then the support is coming, top lane is coming down as well. If it's the bot lane, first TP from top lane, and sometimes straight to bot. Just down, do something around bot side with Reckless. And it gets really difficult to play against if you're not respecting whichever lane they end up actually hard camping, because they are really committed. Once they start, they don't stop.
Yeah, I mean, we saw that against TL, right? Dan was down the
bot lane
like 10 times. And in
Europe, it's been mid, man.
Ulting, so it's definitely scary, and people have to actually, I think, play more around that. The opposing jungler has to change their playstyle to try to match that, because a bot lane can only stand up to so many ganks no matter how well you're actually playing it.
I'll be curious, too, because for Cloud9, as we saw in their first game here, the bot lane suffered a ton of abuse, and they have been a liability at times, at least in the lane phase, throughout the split. As we speak about the match itself, the 2v2 is taking place, as these are both the 3rd seeds coming from their region. They play for side selection here. Looks like we've got Licorice and Niski up against Reckless and
the wall
Nemesis.
combo.
We're gonna be done waxing and waning. It's back out to the casters for the call.
Thank you, gentlemen. Yes, we are here for another 2v2. Number 3 seed versus number 3 seed means we have to break that tie somehow. I am once again Clayton Captain Flowers Reigns, joined by Andrew Vedius Day to bring you the action of this 2v2 and the subsequent full 5v5 between these squads. It is mid laner and top laner from Cloud9 up against the AD carry and mid laner from Fnatic. Anivia Poppy, the wall combo, make the ice slam you into it, going up against some powerful CC mage shenanigans on the side of Fnatic.
I think we either saw it last year at Rift Rivals, or it was at All-Stars that we saw this Anivia Poppy combo, but You get the wall, you go for the power slam. There's very little that you can do about it, especially if you have any dashes as well. Poppy can be very obnoxious, but that's not going to be the case for Fnatic. They're going much more for a traditional double mage poke style comp, which is very much all about harassment. They have, I think that the level 6, because they have the Nico, means that they shouldn't be too bad in terms of an all-in, but until that point, I think their whole goal will just be poke, 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 farm as much as they can, harass the tower, and not get engaged on.
And their wombo combo is absolutely deadly as well. If you hit any sort of a snare with Nico, it'll bind them up long enough for Talia to throw down the field of rocks, throw someone through it with the seismic shove, and honestly, there's enough damage between those two to just blow somebody completely up. Also worth noting, Fedius, double cleanse on the side of Fnatic, very much respecting the CC from Cloud9, who don't care about CC coming out from Fnatic at all. They are going heal ignite for the combat power
on Niski. That's ambitious.
Yeah,
if a single CC lands.
That's a way to put it. He's depending on the egg.
Yeah,
he's saying, all right,
that's
if I have 2 health bars.
Yeah, that's a really good point. He is standing there saying, you know what, I have heal plus barrier, I have an egg as well, I can stall. And in the meantime, my Poppy's just going to beat down on you.
Exactly.
We'll see how well that works out for them. So far, they are being pushed underneath their turret. Nothing too unconventional in the itemization. We are seeing an electrocute on Anivia. I will say this is not most common. Ooh.
Oh, here we go. Licorice going in there. Cleanse already going to be used by Nemesis, but the auto attack plus the ignite means first blood for Cloud9.
Well executed there from the Cloud9 duo. Flash, stun into the wall from Licorice. Quick response with the cleanse from Nemesis. However, he held on to his flash for a little too long, I feel, and he ends up not being able to get away with his life. So once again, the North American squad lead on the board in the 2 versus 2.
And this is, remember, the same situation that we saw last time around. The NA squad gets off to a good start. Even though EU can then find a response kill, you can't trade anymore. You can't just go 1-for-1 at the start of the fight, even if you're going to win it overall, because as soon as that next kill comes in for Cloud9, it's GG. The Nexus pops, the poros explode, everything's great.
Yep.
So now I've got to see some clean gameplay out of the 2v2 from Fnatic to see if they can come back in this one. They've still got some wombo combo potential. Both summoner spells are down for both Licorice and Nemesis. So playmaking potential on either of those players here for both sides.
A bit of a good freeze here coming out from Cloud9 though. Forces both Reckless and Nemesis to extend. Bear in mind that Nemesis, rather Niski and Licorice will have their level 3s up now. So the wall combo is primed and ready to go.
Oh, baby.
And as you said, Nemesis with no summoner spells means that he is going to be the target. They want to kill him. They want to try. And if they land that one stun, you would imagine that with the burst from Electrocute as well, they're going to have it. So they're looking for it now.
Leah likes making walls, but so does Anivia. Stun comes out there. Licorice looking to grab a slam into the wall. Reckless popping the cleanse to keep himself alive ever so barely. Man, Reckless nearly taken down there. Nemesis trying to throw out the threaded volley to take Niski out, but Niski's brought down to 200 HP. Still not worried. Barrier and heal in the back pocket means he's not concerned about any sort of burst, as the second flash will be expended. Neither Fnatic member having the flash ready to go now, as Cloud9 has to pop the heal on their Anivia. Licorice having to back away now too. Tangle Barbs will just barely clip Niski's wings and send him into the egg.
Frustrated hand gesture there from Niski as he gets caught by the E. We'll come back with full health though. Slightly low on mana. Fnatic doing what they can to zone away from the healing relic. I will not be able to do much off the back of that. Ooh, there's another wall. Good stun.
Nice stun, but it doesn't stun him into the wall, actually. Licorice still looking to go further and find the kill, and there you go. Cloud9 with a clean 2-0.
Can the Europeans really be surprised that the North American squads are winning on Howling Abyss? This feels like their environment.
We have trained in the ARAM environment, sir. When things go bad, you run it down mid, you run straight at Fnatic, and you get these kills.
Beautiful stuff from Licorice and Niski. The all-in comp definitely working this time round. The execution on the Poppy was great, and this time they punished Reckless for being by himself. They go for the tower dive, nice and tanky on the Poppy, Knight passive coming in clutch, and they walk away as the victors.
Hey, there's the celebration that we're seeing there. Might have been a little frustrated when the initial Nico stun got him into the egg, but now we're seeing the celebratory hands gesture instead. Cloud9 gets their choice of side selection. Now, last game, We saw TSM get side selection, and it didn't quite pan out the way that they were hoping on the side of Cloud9. We'll see if it plays out any better for them. Remember, this is going to be the last game of the day here for day 1 of Rift Rivals, of the total 3 days of competition, and that means North America needs a win here if we don't want to completely strike out on the first day.
That's very, very true. The problem is Brox is back in. So before, earlier in the day, you had the slightly weaker version of Fnatic, and now you're going up against full power Fnatic. And the thing is with Broxer is he's having quite a good split. Some have even argued that right now he is the best jungler in Europe. Now that is naturally a very big debate between him and Jankos, but considering how strong the top junglers are in Europe right now, it's definitely a scary thing, especially for, I believe, Sven Skaren to have to go up against.
And the one thing that really caught my eye when the desk was talking about Broxa and looking at his stats and how good of a jungler he is when you compared his stats to Svenskeren, many things were super similar, except Broxa had an average gold difference of negative 100 something at 15, and also negative 20 CS at 15, meaning he is completely fine sacrificing his own farm, his own pacing in the game to help the rest of his team get ahead, which demonstrates to me complete faith in his laners to get done what needs to be done.
Yeah, and what's impressed me a lot about Broxer in particular is how he spent a lot of time playing around his 2 solo laners. Because last split, that was not the case. It was all about bot lane or nothing. They were a team-fighting team. It was 5v5.
Reckless.
Whereas this split, they've been bringing out all kinds of crazy comps. They've been doing like pick comps, they've been playing split push comps, they've been playing like, they have had a couple of team fight comps in there as well, but it feels like they've really diversified their playbook. And in my eyes, they're kind of returning to the 2018 Worlds form that we saw originally when they had Caps on the roster. And that, to me, feels like the growth and development that this team is making. And that's why many Fnatic fans are especially excited given their 6-0 record in EU right now.
Right. You remember back to 2018 Worlds, the grand final against IG didn't look too hot for Fnatic, but the rest of the tournament, they had a pretty incredible showing of their run through the entire thing. Ultimately, being in the same group as IG, the whole argument that the 2 best teams in the whole tournament were in there, so 100 Thieves was actually the 3rd best team in the tournament. Lots of good things.
100 Thieves on the upswing right now.
Yeah, 100 Thieves are currently swinging up. You got to watch out. I mean, the last team to beat Cloud9 was actually 100 Thieves. So 2 different members of 2018 Worlds Group D. Cloud9 has their work cut out for them here. Invictus Gaming will be coming up next. I'm certain of it. As we'll be jumping into Champion Select here shortly. The man on your screen right now, Reaper, responsible for so much of what Cloud9's creativity that gets brought to the table. We'll see if they break out anything.
And I think North American fans just want to see not Sonataric. That's what they want.
That's what I want to see. I am a North American fan and I don't like Sonataric. You are correct in your assumptions, my friend.
Well, Pyke is going to be taken off the board. Enough of that.
No, don't ban that. That's fun.
Yeah, European teams, they have too many good Pyke players. Hylissang, well, right now he holds the title of best Pyke player in Europe, given his defeat over G2 Esports. Fnatic, actually the team to ban away the Sona. They don't want to have to deal with it. They've actually been big haters of the duo, so they're going to take that one off the board.
I mean, we remember that back in the day when 80 carries were playing support champions, Reckless is the one who played Janna for a game and was like, nope. And then just benches. He's like, I'll be back when the meta fixes itself.
Yes, he did.
So I don't see Reckless really being a Sona player here. That one's taken off the board. Karma also very, very powerful on this patch. Nobody wants to be dealing with that one. We did get to see it in the show match. Deficio got to see what the Qs do firsthand.
So I feel like Aatrox is going to be the priority, something that the North American LCS loves to prioritize.
Yes, sir.
And Licorice, one of the better Aatrox players that I feel you have domestically. So I think Cloud9 more than happy to pick that one up. In terms of Fnatic, right now, things like the Rakan is still available, and even though that Xayah has been banned, Fnatic are often more than happy to just give that to Hylissang because of how proficient he is on the champion. But they also really like Sivir, because Reckless is a little famous for his Sivir.
A little bit. Well, locking in the Sivir for Reckless there is also going to look real nice when accompanied by the early Jarvan pickup for Broxa. You talk about this guy being a playmaker. You talk about him investing in his lanes. Give him a jungler that's scary from level 2, and that's exactly the kind of thing you're looking for here in this game. Back to Cloud9. They got 2 more picks coming up. Looks like the first one is going to be that Braum going into the bottom lane there. We'll see if they pick the 80 carry to go with.
I love Braum into Sivir. Something that Frost loves to tell me is how obnoxious his shield is against the wave clear of Sivir, because how quickly he can just remove the bouncing boomerangs and the Q as well. So like, he is just very obnoxious, not only in lane, but in team fights, and mitigating one of Sivir's biggest strengths. So I quite like the pickup from Cloud9.
Cloud9 also going to go for the jungler pickup early here. They don't want to allow Fnatic the opportunity to pinch the pool anymore. They say, hey, you drafted yourself an early, strong ganker. We're going to get an early, strong ganker who can also outduel your ganker and have priority in the jungle if he runs into him in those small skirmishes.
Yeah, it certainly is. And immediately Fnatic answer with the Twisted Fate mid lane. Now, this is something that we've been playing a lot over in Europe Nemesis, specifically the AD Twisted Fate. I know here over in the LCS, you guys have actually kind of preferred the AP
We've had
one.
a little bit of both.
You have had, but it was Crown that I usually think of when I think of that AP Twisted
Crown
mid
played the
laner.
traditional style.
And he's brought that over to LCS, and now like this pick has become very relevant over here. I'm curious as to what Cloud9 will have as an answer for it, because given that you guys do play a lot against it, you would imagine that Cloud9 have something prepared.
All right, let's see how we go through this second part of the bans here as Yasuo and Lucian are taken off the table. Not too surprised to see some more focus towards the 80 carry pool here as Cloud9 did not have theirs locked in while Fnatic did. And if you see what Cloud9's banning away, the Shen is taken out as well as Irelia, really looking at that top lane.
Yeah, the Shen makes sense to me because Twisted Fate plus Shen, that's a lot of map press.
Oh,
You don't want to have to deal with that.
Yeah,
and, you know, we heard DeFisher talking on the analyst desk about how Fnatic pick a lane and play around it. If there's a Shen and a Twisted Fate, you know bot lane is the lane that they're going to play around. So Cloud9 don't want to have to deal with that. Interesting, once again, we see Fnatic picking up the Rakan. We already talked a little bit about it. Sang is more than happy to just play it because of how proficient he is on the champion. And this will allow Fnatic to save their final pick for last. While I think Fnatic so far have drafted themselves teamfight options, I actually think that their comp excels at finding picks around the map, playing much more towards the side lanes, while Reckless's job this game will be to just sit mid and farm. He's going to be the wave clear tool. He's just going to be there to soak up all this CS, while the rest of the map is looking for plays on the side lane. They're going to look to catch people off guard and try and force these skirmishes.
And that's what TF always says to me when he's locked in, right? You're looking to make sure you can get the drop on your opponents. Like last game, all it takes is to be there 1 second faster, and when you've got an ult like TF's, pretty easy to make that a reality. As back over to Cloud9, we'll see them lock in that Kai'Sa that Fnatic had hovered earlier on in the draft. They'll take for themselves instead, and also go for that Akali here as the last pick. We saw Niski on it earlier today. We'll see if he can find a win on it here on this second performance.
Now, with Cloud9's comp, I do think that in the early laning phase, the mid matchup will be a little bit difficult, but I do think that once you hit 6, you definitely have kill pressure, and the matchup can do pretty well. I also think they have a pretty solid mid game as well with both the Akali and the Kai'Sa, and with all the mobility that they have, their actual early skirmishing, early to mid game skirmish should actually be pretty strong. But I do think they just are a little bit strong when they group up as a 5-man unit than what Fnatic are bringing to the table, largely because of this Braum and how much value he can bring to mitigate some of this Sivir at damage output. I think Cloud9 have some good answers. It's all about just making sure they don't fall too far behind in the early game.
And we see Fnatic with their last pick in the Gangplank locking in something that has that global pressure. Not the same as a Shen who can get anywhere at any time, but having the Gangplank ulti go anywhere does a nice little job as a proxy. But it is worth noting, recently in North America, we've seen a few different iterations of the Aatrox versus Gangplank matchup. And at least in NA, Aatrox always smacks the Pirate around. So we'll see if Licorice can keep that up against an opponent of the caliber of Whippo.
And because of that, I want to see Svenskeren gank top lane. I want to see them threaten the GP, look for those dives. You don't get to get those early stopwatches to mitigate that. There's little that the Gangplank can do if you set it up properly. So I want to see them try and set up this play because they want to try and mitigate the ability to Fnatic to effectively camp bot. The Gangplank ultimate with the Twisted Fate ultimate with the dive power of the Jarvan as well. You can very clearly see that Fnatic this game have decided bot lane will be their target, and they will not relent until they find that tower.
And when you've got Reckless on Sivir, that's a pretty good investment to make. If you're saying we can get this guy to his 300 CS win condition, just make it so he throws the boomerangs into the team fight and we run them over, that's a pretty solid way to play some League of Legends. Once again, this will be our last game of the day for day one of NA versus EU Rift Rivals 2019. Cloud9 versus Fnatic, the number 3 seeds from their respective regions from Spring Split, going head to head. Cloud9, one of the most popular fan bases in North America. Always loud with their chants, always here to support their squad. And we'll see if the boys can bring NA their first win of the competition. Sneaky gonna find himself retreating here from the bottom lane tri-brush as Fnatic does a 5-man face check with the flag.
Will be forced to take the E early on. Will hurt a bit of his early wave clear, but it does also mean that Cloud9 can look to trade some early vision up towards the top side of the map. So being proactive in this early game to at least get something back. Both junglers looking to figure out where their opponent will start. I wouldn't be surprised to see Broxah start up towards the top side of the map, allow Reckless and Hylissang to get into lane sooner, but also note how Fnatic are staying grouped up as a 5-man unit, afraid of a potential Cloud9 lying in wait.
And as we're waiting on the minions to spawn and everybody goes back into their jungle, real quick look at sort of where the keystones fell this game. Gangplank going with the grasp over the Klepto, wants to make sure he stays as healthy as possible up against Licorice, who did take Electrocute on this Aatrox for maximum kill threat. Hail of Blades on Svenskeren to get the auto attacks off as quickly as he can to make ganks better. And Nemesis going with the Kleptomancy on TF, knowing that he's going to have an easy time finding those auto attacks and those procs onto a melee champion like Akali.
Also the Conqueror on the Jarvan rather than the Electrocute, so going more of the sustained DPS rather than the burst that we can often see from that. Slight differential. Now, level 2 gank from Svenskeren. There is an early ward there from Fnatic, so they will read this play a little bit more defensively. And it looks like that Fnatic are expecting this invade to come out from Svenskeren. Brox is lying in wait.
Broxah knows that he should not be starting this blue buff up, but again, here's the problem. Even if you wait, Jarvan loses to Xin Zhao 1v1. It's not a fight that you want to take, so Broxah has to retreat. He is low on mana. Svenskeren will start up the blue buff. Fnatic are trying to rotate over as both supports working their way into this fight. Broxah's going to get jumped on by Svenskeren. Broxah has to flash away, and now Cloud9 have priority and control over the blue buff. Svenskeren working this one down, uses the smite, steals it away. Broxah still backing. He decides, of course, there's no reason to be sticking around on this one. You can't contest any further, and Svenskeren will take control of this part of the jump.
Great utilization of the early game pressure from the side of Cloud9. Notice how Niski actually gained priority in mid lane, making it harder for Nemesis to roam down. And because Reckless and Hylissang were forced to play on the back foot, because they spotted Svenskeren out, it meant that they were forced to play defensively as well. So Broxah had no real assistance. In the 1v1, as you alluded to, he was going to lose, which means that they're able to get a clean buff steal, but now Licorice flashing away.
1v1 on the top side, won't be that way for long. Broxah shows up to try to lend a helping hand, but remember, he didn't have a flash because he had to use it in his own jungle, so he cannot flash for the final auto attack. Cloud9's bottom lane, forced back underneath their turret. Sneaky almost killed. First blood happens in the top side as Niski moves up there on cleanup duty.
Niski has been generating so much pressure in mid that he was quickly able to get an effective TP up towards topside to get the collapse down onto Bwipo. What should have been a solo kill ends up as a kill going in favor of Cloud9. They lead the kills and the gold.
You always like to see that Gangplank be set behind a little bit early. Let's take a look at how Niski did it.
So you can see the teleport coming in. He pushes out mid. He then goes into Fog of War, and he cuts off the escape route of Bwipo. Doesn't need that much to find that kill on a squishy Gangplank with no flash, and Brox is forced to get out of there because the jungler of Cloud9 shows up as well.
One of my favorite things to follow in League of Legends is unintended consequences. And the consequence of having to flash because you wanted to contest your blue buff in the bottom lane for Broxah meant not finding that kill onto Licorice, meant getting your own top laner killed instead, and it's tragedy early for Fnatic from that one. But at the same time, not that tragic, because when you look at the gold, they're still slightly ahead despite being down a kill.
And it's because of this bot lane. Notice how Fnatic have been generating so much pressure in this 2 versus 2. Sneaky and Zeyzal took one bad trade, and now they have no health pots left. They've run out of sustain, and all the wave clear from Reckless is just free to run rampant through the minions and generate a lot of pressure.
Speaking of pressure, Licorice making sure to apply some to Bwipo here in the top side. getting the better of him in the trade here early on, but Whippo makes sure to take the extended trade when Licorice's cooldowns are down, so he doesn't completely lose the lane.
And this was something we were talking about earlier, Captain Flowers, when we were complaining about Tom Kench, and the fact that those are very obvious windows where you can look to trade. Very long cooldowns to the Aatrox Q early on meant that Whippo could comfortably stay in range and just keep harassing with the auto attack, with the grasp proccing as well. The burn from the Gangplank passive means that he was actually able to come out relatively even against Licorice. So great awareness there from Whippo, good trade from Licorice as well. Meanwhile, overall state of the game, very even for both sides.
Sneaky trying to find himself a 1v2 kill here. Whoa, that Void Seeker would have done it. Reckless, quick on the reaction with the spell shield to make sure he stays alive there, but Sneaky almost made it happen 1v2.
Cloud9 doing a great job in this early game, but notice how Nemesis has now hit level 6. We have to keep an eye on where he's going to look to make his play. There's no flash top lane. This feels like the easiest play for him to be able to look for, and given that Brox has already made his way up there, I think that they'll be looking to try and get that shutdown onto Licorice.
We also have to pay attention to the fact that Brox is severely behind this game. He is level 3 on the Jarvan. He had 7 CS at 3 or 4 minutes into the game. He had taken 3 top and only cleared his initial buff because of Cloud9's interference and the fact that the play didn't go well into the top side. Before the game, we already mentioned how Broxa will commonly fall behind early game to help facilitate his team getting ahead, but in this game, his team's not really getting ahead just yet. He's just falling behind. He'll step out and try to find the gank onto Licorice here, who does not have that flash, as you already mentioned. Licorice will try to just lead them back the other way, but it won't do much, and Fnatic get on the board.
So, cost Broxa a bit of time, but they do end up finding the kill. Now, Svenskeren on the other side of the map, looking for a play of his own. They don't have the wave stacking, so they can't really look for a dive, but he is sitting in the fog of war right now, as that control ward nullifies that red ward that Reckless and Hylissang have placed.
With Hail of Blades on the Xin Zhao, it's so easy to get those 3 auto attacks off with the 3 Talon Strike. Hilly wants to walk over here and see if he can clear that control ward out. He's going to walk right into Svenskeren, who saves the dash, wants to go forward. He finds the knockup. There's your chain CC coming through. They needed one more auto attack and could not get it. Fnatic disengage.
Very close, though, from Cloud9. They almost found themselves another kill on the board. Unfortunately, could not convert it into much. So we're getting a quick look back at this play up top lane. Not really much to break down outside of Licorice's lane is in a really awkward spot, given that it's constantly pushing towards Whippo's tower. It means that he's always forced to just slightly overextend to stay within, at the very least, XP range. Would have been nice if his jungler could come top to help him push that one out. Unfortunately, he was playing towards the bot side of the map, so he ends up losing his life.
Fnatic still feeling comfortable here in the early game. 1,000 gold ahead of their opponents. Zeyzal and Sneaky just doing what they can to farm up here. And there's been a few Cloud9 games so far this split in North America where Sneaky and Zeyzal have not had the best time in bottom lane. The rest of the map has carried them. This is a duo that is okay with not being the ones who get super far ahead early on in the game. They don't need to be heavily invested into. Speaking of heavy investment, Cloud9 again looking to invest in counter jungling Broxa. Nemesis is here already. Svenskeren wants to steal this away, but Reckless is already popping the on the hunt. Gangplank ulti continues to come down. Nemesis secures the blue buff with the wild cards.
So a couple of ultimates we use from Fnatic. This time, Fnatic actually secured their own blue buff. But C9 are generating a lot of pressure, and because they have so much control over the bot side of the map, they'll actually be able to start off the Drake. So they've been actually playing a lot more around the bottom side. They kind of abandoned Licorice. I wanted to see more of them invest towards the top side of the map, because if you try and force a play bot, there's always the risk of, even if it is 4v4 and Whippo can't join the fight, that Gangplank ultimate adds like a half member, you know? Yep. So it's like 4 versus 4.5. So trying to play and shut down this duo is a lot harder. But they're committing. And so far, they shut Broxa down in the early game. But notice now, he's level 6. He's a level 8. Svenskeren just ticked over, but the fact that they're the same level, considering the deficit he found himself at, definitely surprising.
Oh, Licorice trying to take Whippo down underneath the turret, but Broxa is there in time, and they turn it around.
Right place, right time once again for Broxa. That looked like a clean kill for Licorice, and now he's
oh, here comes Twisted Fate. Zeyzal is thrown under the bus with no way out. A little bit more damage will do the trick as Niski shows up with a TP, looking to clean one up in return. Goes back into the smoke, keeping himself stealth. Tries to escape with a perfect execution. Shuriken gonna follow that one up, and it's 1 for 1.
Good teleport once again from Niski. Joins the Twisted Fate in the bot lane to allow, at the very least, a trade or support between the two teams. But Fnatic still come out on top because they lost Licorice in the top lane. Again, that dive looked easy. That Gangplank had no mana. He had no health. Licorice says this guy is greeting. He's overstaying, but notice how Broxah pathing his way up. Noticing, like, I think he's going to try and dive you. Whippo knows he's going to try and get dived, so he's there to help save the day. And here's the clutch flash to get that knock up. The tower shot helps secure the kill. Very well played there from Broxah in light of his weaker early game. Then we get to see this play. The duo, again, overextended because of where Fnatic is keeping the wave. This allows Nemesis to get a good ulti off, but the Ignite has to kill Azazel, and then Niski with a 3-man stun into the Shroud, just buying a lot of time, allows them to get at least 1 kill back. Now Hylissang dying in the river.
Hylissang in some trouble here. Not going to be pulled back into the Aatrox zone with the chain. And once again, it's 3 out of 4 hits on the Braum passive, meaning he walks away. Zazel still no level 6, still no Glacial Fissure if this breaks out into a full-blown team fight. Cloud9 controls the river right now. Shelly is aggro, putting a couple of auto attacks onto the Cloud9 support. Fnatic hanging around just to make sure Cloud9 doesn't get away with this. Nemesis still in mid lane, shoving this one out, trying to gain priority, give Cloud9 something else to think about.
Bot lane has been completely abandoned. Everyone is up
Nobody's
the
hanging
top
out
side.
there no more.
They all want to fight for this Rift Herald. Fnatic have control of the river right now, but they can't commit to Zazel. Will they use the ultimate? No. Broxah just going to be his safety guard there for Hylissang as they walk away. And again, this like ebb and flow, both teams fighting for river control. They've swapped both their top lanes up towards the top side, knowing that Rift Herald is the next big objective. But notice how Whippo has his ulti available. Ultimates are coming online everywhere except for Reckless. The C9 wants to start this one off. Will Fnatic fight for it?
Fnatic critically also a few seconds away from having the Twisted Fate ultimate available on Nemesis as well, so they cannot use that to check the position of everybody on Cloud9. Iski sitting on top of a control ward, ready to swoop in from the flank if this fight goes all the way. Svenskeren picks up the Eye of the Herald. Fnatic still looking for the opportunity to engage, but Cloud9 back themselves away. Unbreakable thrown up. Zazel keeping himself in a defensive position. Ult thrown out by Nemesis. They see everybody from Cloud9 is here, so they don't go after it because Whippo is pushing up on the bottom side.
And this is the thing. Fnatic made the decision that they will sacrifice the Rift Herald to get Whippo more gold and pressure on that tower. Sneaky now, gets knocked up. Will just walk away with his life, though. He's absolutely fine in that 1 versus 2. But the thing about that Twisted Fate ultimate that was so good is it gave information on where Licorice was. So in a situation where Fnatic could have potentially gone for a fight, they recognize that Licorice isn't bot lane, which means that they can just freely allow Whippo to keep sieging onto this tower and actually secure the first tower of the game.
Whippo burns that one down with the trial by fire from exploding the barrel, gets it just in time as Licorice shows up to see the rubble fall. That's Fnatic going almost 4,000 gold up. The game wouldn't look that severe when you just look at it as 1 turret and 1 kill lead going Fnatic's way. But then when you examine the farm, when you examine the fact that there's so much money on this Twisted Fate from the Klepto, so much money on Gangplank because of him farming up passively with the parlay, there's an 8 CS difference top lane, but because of the advantages earned for the Gangplank in terms of turret plates, global gold, and his passive, he's 1,700 gold ahead.
Yeah, Whippo's pretty strong pirate right now. That economy doing works for him as we approach the end of the turret plate phase. Fnatic looking to secure even more, and that's really where a lot of their advantages have come from so far this game. Even though Cloud9 have been proactive and have found a couple of picks here and there, and I like what they were doing in the enemy jungle, so far it hasn't really resulted in any significant objective outside of the Rift Herald. So utilizing that is going to be very crucial for them. And I want to see them take down this mid-tier 1 tower because it then makes it a lot harder for the Twisted Fate the rogue. The reason is because you can then push out mid. Ooh.
Hylissang trying to get away. One more auto attack. Once again. That's 3 times now, Vidian. 3 times they've gotten to 3 out of 4 of the stacks, and Hylissang always gets away.
So the thing is, now C9 have committed 3 members up towards the top side. Fnatic can send their members mid and start threatening this very low health mid-tier 1. And the reason why you want to keep this mid tower alive is because you want to deny the enemy getting deep vision in the enemy jungle. Because that's when Twisted Fate really thrives as they go on to Sneaky.
Oh, Sneaky's going to be blown up here, trying to get himself away with a killer instinct, but Reckless says, no, thank you, sir. That's 2 kills going the way of Fnatic.
And this is the half member, except the whole guy TP'd in this time is Niski now in a 1v3.
Niski shows up, tries to defend underneath the turret, but it only had 1 shot left, meaning Niski has no health. He'll manage to take down Reckless, but it's only going to be 1-for-1. Broxa tries to get himself away. He'll manage to dodge out with the flag and drag as Licorice tries to pursue his opponent. One more slam might be able to do it, but it's not going to come in time. It's a double kill for Nemesis.
And Cloud9 try to react to the play being made from Fnatic in the top side rather than try and get something elsewhere on the map. That is not what you want to be doing against a Fnatic that has so many globals and so much mobility. They always had the numbers advantage. They walk away with the kills, they walk away with the tower, and Fnatic is a happy team. And this is where this all started. Sneaky gets collapsed on because Zeyzal is trying to ward the Tribush. He loses too much damage before Zeyzal can stop the death from coming through. Then the Gangplank comes through. And again, they should be looking to try and trade something elsewhere on the map. But look at where the bot lane is pushed in. You can notice that Licorice is kind of shoved underneath this situation, and he can't help. So C9 is just constantly sending member after member up towards the top lane, saying maybe we can get something back, but it's just like one by one, they just keep running into Fnatic rather than just cutting their losses and getting out of that situation.
Single file lines work for the lunchroom. They don't work for top lane, as Cloud9 learned the hard way here. Double kill over to Nemesis puts him up to 2-0-1 on this Twisted Fate. Trinity Force means very powerful procs on the pick a card. Rapid fire cannon means extra range to get those stuns. Very scary and often something that can surprise you if you're not used to playing against it. Nemesis and the rest of Fnatic now going forward once again. There's that long range stun I'm talking about. Only onto Zeyzal though. Cloud9 coming back in, looking to re-engage this one. Brox is stunned up. There's your Glacial passive coming in. Those blows doing their job as they are going to lose Zeyzal on the side of Cloud9. It's 2 dead on C9, 1 on Fnatic. Cloud9 in full retreat now as Sneaky's going to be stunned up, taken down. Nemesis goes on a killing spree, and the man's not finished yet. Stuns up Niski, but he goes too far, and that's a shutdown plus another going the way of Cloud9. Niski falls too. Good Lord, Venius, it's a bloodbath. Licorice is up next. Bullets and boomerangs are flying. Cloud9 dying. Double kill Whippo.
You took the words right out of my mouth, Captain Flowers. Fnatic obliterate Cloud9, who fought valiantly in the mid lane, but it was not enough. The gold lead mounts. 9,000 is the advantage Fnatic now sit on, and Fnatic is forced to walk away and watch as their objectives crumble.
Whippo's Gangplank is fierce at this point in the game. He got out of the laning phase that we expected him to lose. He's 35 CS ahead. He's got the Trinity Force in inventory. This guy, the world is his oyster. He can do whatever he pleases.
Yeah, he doesn't quite have the big crits just yet, so his barrels aren't as scary as some have been in the past. But Fnatic, they have to be careful trying to force this Ocean Drake because they spend a lot trying to secure those 2 mid towers. So if they get too greedy, they could end up losing mid themselves. They don't want to do that, so they're just waiting for Sivir to come back out on the map. And then once everyone has rejoined, spent that gold, then they can look to try and force this objective. So let's have a look back at this replay. Notice how much damage Niski takes from the poke from the side of Fnatic. And then just kind of stun Zeyzal. This is more like a power play, forcing C9 to split up, kind of get them to bait into overextending. But then they actually find a kill onto Broxer, and things actually look very good for Cloud9 initially. But then they can't quite commit because of how Fnatic positions underneath the tower. If they go too deep, then they're just going to take all that extra damage from the tower shot. And they kind of lost 2 of their big frontline members with both the Brawn and...
Okay, we're right back into the fight. Brox are going to be taken low here in the middle. Reckless on the wrong side of the wall, still looking to find some damage onto the back line of the Cloud9 members. He's going to be taken down. Sneaky's out of the picture. 3 down on the side of Fnatic. Cloud9 striking back hard, but Nemesis is still alive, and the cards are being thrown left, right, and center. Licorice knocks him up into the air, but he locks in another gold card, looking to find that mark onto somebody. The Gangplank ulti comes down. Cloud9 are in retreat. Svenskeren gets stunned up. Niski doesn't want to be taking that blast cone anytime soon. It is a 3-for-2, but it goes the way of Cloud9.
Ooh. I mean, that's still a great team fight for Cloud9. They're able to find a couple kills. They're able to get a couple shutdowns. Niski potentially even looking for an engage onto Nemesis.
Oh, what do we got here? Nice stun coming out from Nemesis, making sure Niski can't go too crazy here. Another gold card. Nope. Red card coming out just to clear those minions out.
But looking forward to this replay. See how C9 were able to find this fight. Looks like Fnatic set up and started the Ocean Drake, but notice how Reckless is still in the mid lane. Fnatic feel at this point that they can get this collapse happening because it's a 5 versus 4, but then they actually can't kill Zeyzal and Svenskeren fast enough. Reckless is now stuck in this awkward position where he's now on the red buff, And it feels like the C9 were just in the better position to fight. They had the flanking TP from behind. They were able to fight front to back. They had their tanks being focused at the beginning of the fight, and then they could disengage. Even though they ended up losing the Kai'Sa, finding 3 kills was still very important for them and buys them a little bit more time and a small avenue back into the game.
Well, they're going to need to put some time on the credit card here soon because they are running low, my friend. 9,000 gold down, not even 20 minutes into the game is a pretty rough way to be. Cloud9 need to find some more of those fights where they can get that advantage and pick off these Fnatic members.
You see a 7-2 Akali and you think, surely he's got to be strong, he's got to be fed, and he's still over 1,000 gold behind Nemesis. That is the situation C9 currently find themselves in. And while this Akali is still strong, the question is it enough? If you can find that kill onto Reckless, maybe, but then you've got Whippo to deal with on the back of that with the Gangplank. Now with the Ghost Blade completed as well.
Yeah, you can see Whippo, you mentioned earlier, he doesn't have big crits coming in. He's not even bothering investing towards it. Instead, he's going for the more mid-game immediate power spike in the lethality with the Ghost Blade. Also gives him chase potential. And man, oh man, Vedius, do I love seeing Executioner's Calling against healing-based champions. Leave the cookie cutters at home with grandma. Make sure you adapt to what your opponents are doing. Stop the healing when the healing is prevalent. So strong up against champions like the Aatrox, like the Akali. Even Xin Zhao has built-in healing in the kit. Can be very effective in making sure Fnatic secure these kills. And 21 minutes into the game, you don't always expect a super early Baron, but when you're ahead to the degree Fnatic is, it's always got to be on Cloud9's mind.
Yeah, you've got to be careful of Fnatic starting it. The bright side for Cloud9 is Fnatic don't actually have that many tanky members. You kind of default to the Jarvan, but Baron is risky when you kind of think of the situation that they're in. So I feel like Fnatic, what they want to be doing right now is looking for picks, right? You can see Nemesis sitting on a side lane, and what they'll do is they'll have Reckless push in mid, and then use Hylissang and Broxah to gain vision over the top side jungle, and then kind of force these plays onto Niski, who right now is sitting on top of a ward and is just going to die.
Niski's, he's all right. He's all right. He's a Kali. He's a Kali. It's pretty hard to pick.
Like Fnatic could have tried to make that play. Instead, they're just going to back away. Meanwhile, in the bot lane.
Bottom side, Whippo is showing no mercy onto Licorice. Licorice tries to flash it. Oh, a nice stasis there, but it's only going to buy him a moment. Whippo goes forward, and he grabs himself the kill.
Unfortunately for Licorice, he struggled in the laning phase, given the pressure that was put out by Broxah. Now Fnatic
oh, spin scare, and that's not where you want to be. Reckless picks up another one, and with 2 members dead on the side of Cloud9, Fnatic sees the opportunity to push, and push harder as they're going straight for the mid lane tier 3. They'll burn that one down. Inhibitor stands, but only for a moment, Vedius, as Fnatic have no signs of pumping the brakes just yet. Reckless left to put the last couple of autos into the mid lane inhib. Now 5 men rotate into the bottom lane to finish off the next objective. Gold card primed and ready. Nemesis looking to set up that next kill. Wham, bam, there you go. That's an easy CC chain for the side of Fnatic. Gangplank ulti comes down just to make sure Cloud9 doesn't get any funny ideas. Niski tries to go in, buy a little bit more time with the smoke screen into the perfect execution. Cloud9's going in, but they will be eviscerated. Fnatic turn it right back around. Here comes Twisted Fate. Sneaky's running the wrong way. Goes for the teleport just because there ain't nothing left to do. Fnatic going straight for the jugular on this one. Licorice taken out. Fnatic going all the way, ladies and gentlemen. Day number 1 of Rift Rivals, a perfect score for the European teams. Fnatic move on to the Nexus, and Cloud9 will fall.
Impressive performance once again from the side of Fnatic. Cloud9, we did see some pretty sweet proactive moves from them in the early game. They shut down Broxah pretty hard. He was sitting at level 2 for a very long time. Yet it felt like the Broxah was still finding more success in terms of early game ganks than Svenskeren was.
Yeah.
He couldn't find those kills towards bot. We talked about it in the draft how I kind of really wanted to see him play around top. You know, I wanted to see him play with the Aatrox, that strong side of the map, try and leverage the ability to dive the Gangplank, but instead they wanted to play more towards the bot side, and we saw them never set up a dive, never get any kind of kills, and have eventually got to a point where the map opened up, and that's when Fnatic's pick comp really started to come online.
I mean, after Bwipo died top lane for first blood, Broxa immediately comes back up there, helps him get a kill to get back in the game, not be set behind at all. Later on, when Licorice also tries to dive him, boom, Brox is immediately there. Even though the guy was set to cannon minion status for the first few minutes of the game because he was so far behind, it's the mark of a really good jungler to me to be put in such a bad spot and still be so useful in this game. 1, 2, and 11 final score, still participated in a ton of the kills, and honestly, all of Fnatic, even when they were behind in terms of playmaking, they were just farming so much better. They had the resources through Kleptomancy and the Gangplank passive. They were never truly behind.
And props to Niski, though. I felt like he did have some very good teleports in this game, and his Akali was very solid, but ultimately it didn't matter because of the deficit that his team was in, and they couldn't really ever leverage this Akali, especially off on a side lane. But he did what he could. He followed Nemesis. He actually had some great vision placement early on to track where Nemesis would be looking for any potential roams, so Cloud9 always had information. And I think that he did everything that he could have in the situation that he was in. Unfortunately, against the likes of Helasang constantly roaming, Broxa having a very effective turnaround in his game, and Bwipo just looking like a monster pirate, there was very little that Niski could unfortunately do.
Yeah, Niski had one of those unfortunate scores. Your friends look into your match history, say 7-3. How'd you lose
Yeah,
that one, bro?
how'd you lose that one?
You just had to be there. But to hear from a member of the triumphant team that was there, let's send it down to Riv for an interview.
Thank you, gentlemen. Great cast on the day. I am joined by Bwipo of Fnatic after their victory over Cloud9. They got some fans in the crowd. You had a little chat with Licorice before the matchup. We heard about that before the game. How did it play out? And it kind of seemed like, did you call for help there to make it uneven in the beginning?
Well, yeah, I feel like after the early game, Broxa was kind of having a hard time bot side.